Once again, banking while black. Put up the picture full mass. PNC Bank is on the agenda today. They refused to allow a black woman to cash a check, even though it was their bank the check was issued from. Had the bank's name on it. $10,000 refused. Black woman in Michigan sues PNC Bank after the white manager made an executive decision, refused to cash the check that had the bank's name on it. She says it was embarrassing and humiliating. You're looking at Miss Kiara Young. She was attempting to cash a $10,500 check at a local PNC bank in Michigan when the bank refused to cash it without providing a valid explanation, leaving Young to assume it was because she was, quote, banking while black, especially considering the check was issued from a local car dealership that had their account with PNC Bank, meaning the name of the bank was on the damn check, meaning they did not have to wait to verify funds. All right. Young, who had just sold a car to the dealership, had tried to cash the check at her own bank, but was told to cash it in PNC Bank since it was their check. If PNC Bank had a reason to believe Young was committing fraud, they could have easily contacted the dealership to confirm the legitimacy of the check, which is standard protocol for banks. At first, the teller informed her that she would have to pay a 2% processing fee. Hold the hell up. Hold on. The bank teller said, you will have to pay a 2% processing fee. Now, is this PNC Bank or are you a check cashing establishment? Because at a check cashing establishment, they give you 2.5. You guys are 0.5% below. There's more. Which she actually said, okay. She agreed to pay a fee at the bank that the check was written from or on. But then other bank employees started to gather around the check. They started to examine the check, becoming suspicious of the check all of a sudden. They called the bank manager. The manager then told her they would not be cashing the check without having even bothered to conduct a routine investigation to determine the validity of the check. Instead, the manager told her to cash the check at your own bank. The white bank manager who refused to cash the check, quote, had an unprofessional tone, was rude, and gave Ms. Young an unfriendly look, according to a lawsuit Young filed against the bank last year. Quote, the only investigation the bank manager engaged in was determining Ms. Young's skin color and seeing the amount of the check to be cashed. The lawsuit, obtained by Atlanta Black Star, states defendant's failure to investigate the check before denying Ms. Young the service constituted a deviation from defendant's own policies or practices, unequal application of the policy here. In fact, Young was able to cash the check without any problem the following day at another PNC branch, which made the original bank's refusal even more suspicious. So here we go. Let's put them up. So PNC, the corporate office, they got answer for it now. So PNC Bank responded to the lawsuit by asking the judge to dismiss the case on the basis that it was factually deficient and fails to plausibly state a claim of racial discrimination. But more than a year since she filed the lawsuit, PNC Bank has failed to provide a valid reason as to why Young was denied service in the first place, other than claiming the bank was about to close and did not have enough cash on hand. Details that were never explained to Young when she was denied service. They made this up after the fact. It's called the huddle. According to the judge's decision, based on the allegation, the court has to make an inference about the bank manager's true reason since it was unstated. It can infer that the bank denied service for a legitimate business reason, or it can infer that the bank teller discriminated against Young on the basis of race. Without more, they are both plausible inferences. Reading the complaint in light of the most favorable view of Young, she has sufficiently pleaded facts that could plausibly suggest racial animus as a motivation for denying service. Now, understand what he's saying. He's saying that both are plausible. We're talking about evidence to evidence, okay? However, for the case to move forward, he's viewing it as a judge should in the most favorable light of the alleged injured party, okay? And this was a proper summary. Earlier this year, another Detroit bank, remember this, was sued by a Black couple for refusing to cash a settlement check on 4 separate occasions. And last year, another Black man filed a lawsuit against the Bank of Minnesota, who called the cops on him when he was simply trying to cash a cashier's check. In 2022, remember this when we covered, Black Panther director, Mr. Ryan Coogler, was handcuffed, detained after trying to withdraw $10,000 from his own damn bank account in Atlanta at Bank of America. Young's attorney, Sharif Akil, stated, and I quote, "We will keep filing these discrimination suits until it stops." It's unfortunate that African Americans in the 21st century still have to face such difficulties when they want to obtain simple banking services like cashing a check. Okay, now, you can't argue that the money is not in the bank because the account holder is surety via cash of the paper check. You cannot claim that cashier's check in the other incident was not as valid as cash. That's the reason why the bank gives it to you in that form. You're simply transforming it back to cash. The irony is the discrimination is evident, but even if you believe, well, no racial issue here, all right, public accommodation. You will accommodate everybody else who can come to this facility in a particular way, protocols established, but then you dismiss the protocol when there's someone else of a darker complexion. We got to have multiple conversations. All right, I'm glad you hear this, sister. You can break some of this madness down as well. What say you?
Sure, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. As an attorney, I would say that Ms. Young definitely has a case. So starting off, what PNC Bank did, they tried to file a motion to dismiss, which in law terms is called a 12B6. So they're saying she doesn't have a case at all. Get rid of it. This is just what we do. And it's interesting that the judge came back and said, "No, baloney. I don't believe that." And there were a few reasons he said that. One, the race of the bank teller versus the race of Miss Young. Miss Young is clearly a Black woman. The bank teller was a white woman. So we have that established. Second is the bank teller's tone also. He inferred from the complaint that Miss Young filed, she was rude. She didn't offer an explanation as to why she couldn't cash the check. She didn't say, "Oh, we don't have any money in the bank." She didn't say, "Come back tomorrow, maybe we can check." She just simply said, "No, this is weird. It's just weird behavior." And we have to go, like you said, with the victim who suffered the injury, in inferring what happened. So two things the judge found and completely decided that we're going to go with Miss Young. PNC since hasn't responded since their motion to dismiss was filed. Usually what happens here at some point is they're going to try to settle the case. They'll try to work their way through it, because it's clearly a case of discrimination, plain and simple. They've pulled all the stops that they could, trying to dismiss it. That's not going to work. What they did was plain wrong, and they know it. Because 2 days later, Miss Young was able to go to another PNC branch location and got the check cleared and cashed.
That's right.
All they had to do also was call the dealership up and ask, hey, is this a real check? The fact that they had multiple people around trying to decipher, what does the check mean? Is this real? Is this fraudulent? All of this points to the issue of banking while black.
You know, and you make such a compelling point about the reality of liability here, right? The bank actually could have probably gotten away with it if they were smarter. They could have just cited a business reason on the record, and a judge may have interpreted this differently. But if you say it now and you actually go to trial, where we need to put everybody under sworn testimony here, because naturally that conversation would have happened. Where's the email between? Well, how much money did you actually have? Let's get that too in evidence to see if you actually did have $10,500. You're about to close. Where's you gonna get the money to?
Exactly. Dr. Richey, Dr. Richey, they're not going to want to do all that.
Right, exactly.
They don't want to have all their records pulled and foiled. They're likely going to end up settling this case and probably offer some more trainings going forward in the future. Because, like you said, this isn't the first time that this happened. It's not the first time that it's happened across multiple banks. So yeah, it's just an issue that we repeatedly keep seeing popping up, and the federal laws clearly state that there's no discrimination based on race when you're banking. There's fair housing standards that protect against that. There's equal protection laws that protect against that. So they're in clear violation, and it looks like this judge is siding with Miss Young. So it would be in their best interest to offer her a check for much larger than $10,000 now.
Yeah, they're gonna damn sure cash that check. All right.